The team just surviving in the Championship in 21st place by the skin of their teeth is Huddersfield Town.
Oh dear me, this is not going to be fun. What is up everyone, welcome back to a brand new video on Lexalexus. It's the video that everyone has been waiting for. It is my official reaction to my predictions on the Championship 21-22 season right at the start of the season before a ball had been kicked. I am very nervous to share these results with you. I think looking at the table now, it's my worst performance. So I can only apologise in advance, guys. I will be looking at comments that made predictions as well. So I'm not saying that I'm only just going to be exposed. All of you guys that have left your predictions are going to get exposed as well. It's going to be a fun video talking about how wrong we all were. And that's supposed to be the fun of this video. If you guys like what you see, please give the video a like. It does tremendously help the channel. Please do hit the subscribe button if you've not done so. And please share this channel to as many people as you can. All of that really helps the channel. But without any further ado, now let's get going to reacting to this table prediction.
In 24th place, and Derby fans are probably sick to death of seeing this, but I have got your club in 24th place. Things are going to get a little bit complicated. They're under a transfer embargo, and Derby could really sign only out of contract players, which is why it's been a bit difficult for Derby to improve their squads. If Derby survive, then fair play to you, because you're going to have it really tough this season.
So of course, likewise with everyone else, I predicted Derby to finish in 24th. In the end, that did not quite happen. They finished in 23rd. Fair play to them, you know, because I know that, you know, if they would look at this season thinking they had a really good chance at one stage to get out of the relegation zone. They really started to get some consistent form in together, actually. But the biggest problem is that they had gone through a period of 13 games without a win. So that long winless streak ultimately really did not help things. And they did have a load of injuries and their squad was thin enough as it is. So it definitely wasn't a great season on their part. In a normal season campaign, they actually would have finished in around 17th place where Bristol City have finished. So it still would have been a very disappointing season taking away the deductions based on Derby standards, but based on the squad they had, they were always going to have it tough. And Wayne Rooney does deserve credit by not getting this Derby side in rock bottom. All of us predictors that predicted Derby in rock bottom got that one slightly wrong, but only slightly.
Coming in at 23rd place, which might be a bit of a shock, but I have got Hull City to finish in 23rd place. I'm just looking at their squad at the moment. And for goals, you're looking at Malik Wilkes to try and get goals. Keane Lewis-Potter's going to need a big season with Josh McGuinness as well, which I don't heavily back to score too many goals. Hull are going to have it really tough as well this season.
Oh dear me. Okay, so I predicted Hull to finish in 23rd. Clearly, that did not happen. And what it sounds like here, I had no confidence in Keane Lewis-Potter. Longman was a crucial player, which I did say in that video that I think Longman going in is going to be a very useful player. And by the start of the season, it did look like 23rd would be a place that Hull could finish because they had a really poor start to the season when they had 9 games, you know, without a win since opening their first day of the season. But then they had 4 wins in a row, which they did fantastically well. And then since then, Hull City weren't able to have 4 wins in a row at all. And it's been a little bit more inconsistent. They obviously sacked Grant McCann midway through the season. New ownership, new manager, and it's a bit up and down with their form. But finishing 19th place, they did finish pretty comfortably right at the end. They managed to finish up to 15 points above the bottom 3. So you could say that this prediction was definitely very wrong by me.
Coming in at 22nd place, the final relegation spot is the non-transfer embargo team, and it's Peterborough United. So I'm predicting the top 2 of League One to get straight back down to League One in the following season.
Okay, a good start. We actually got a team correct in the correct position. Just like last year where I predicted Rotherham to finish in the exact same place, I predicted Peterborough to finish in 22nd. And I've got to say, not many people, for what I saw, did predict Peterborough to finish in 22nd. It was either 23rd or it was above the relegation zone. Those were the two most common positions sold with Peterborough, so I'll take a little bit of pride that I got this right. And I think the biggest difference was their goal scoring record. I mentioned with Johnston Clark-Harris that he needs a big season, and if he scored double figures in goals, he could save them. He did score 12 goals this season, but ultimately that even though was enough because it was their defence that ultimately took them down, with the worst defensive record in the league, conceding over 87 goals. That is why Peterborough were ultimately relegated. Pretty good start with these predictions so far. Let's see how well it continues.
The team just surviving in the Championship in 21st place by the skin of their teeth is Huddersfield Town. This is definitely going to be a really testing season for Carlos Corberán.
Oh, for Christ's sake, of course I've had to do a really bad prediction after I've just done my best prediction so far. Right, so Huddersfield in 21st. What can I say here? I was not confident with Corberán, clearly, and they had a really poor run of form, Huddersfield, at the end of the season. I mean, it's one everyone got wrong, to be fair. Third place is an unbelievable season to have a 17-place improvement from last year to nearly double the amount of points that they got from last season as well. I've got to say, it was not only for the fact that they actually coped well with their injuries this season, it's the players they brought in. I didn't even mention Sorba Thomas, where he was an unbelievable talent there. Danny Ward had a disappointing season, but this season he scored double figures in goals, and I've got to say, he played a really big part in Huddersfield's success as well. Harry Toffolo was fantastic. So many players just really stepped up to the plate, and I gotta say, well done to Huddersfield. You've proven me wrong, and you've proven a lot of people wrong, so I can't be too mad, but I can be mad that I was 18 places wrong. That is by far the worst prediction I think I have done in all 3 of my years of doing Championship content.
20th place might be my biggest call yet, but I have got Preston North End to finish in 20th place. Frankie McAvoy will have his first full season in charge, where he's not really had a full season ever as a first team coach / manager. So that in itself is already making me quite nervous, and I'm really struggling to see where the goals are coming from. Emil Rees, whilst he's got promising quality in terms of moving with the ball, shooting the ball, I don't think he has it.
Oh, these predictions aren't getting much better, I've got to say. So I predicted Preston to finish in 20th place in this season. I think a big factor with that was McAvoy. And what Preston did is that they did manage to dismiss McAvoy pretty quickly within the season when Preston were actually in around that 19th to 20th place position in the table. They got Ryan Lowe in, and I've got to say, when Ryan Lowe did go in, I was a little bit sceptical. Obviously, he did very, very well with Plymouth, and actually were making Plymouth one of the best teams in League One before he left to join Preston. But the step up I thought was going to be a bit of a challenge, but ultimately, I think had they kept McAvoy for longer and they introduced Ryan Lowe later into the season, maybe that prediction wouldn't have been too bad. But I was very, very bad in terms of slating their attacking play. Yes, I didn't score too many goals, but Emil Rees-Jacobson, I mean, I gave him no confidence, but he actually turned out to be the 10th highest goal scorer this season. He actually has contributed to 31% of Preston's goals this season, scoring 16 goals out of their 52 goals this season. So, Emil Rees-Jacobson, I've got to give him credit there. He has actually done pretty well, you know, with all things considered there. So, maybe I should give Emil Rees a little bit more credit there. It may be more tricky next season if they do lose Vandenberg, Archer and Iverson, their loan players, but I think either way, Rees-Jacobson is a decent Championship striker, and I think I definitely should have backed him a little bit more.
Coming in at 90th place is Preston's Lancaster rivals, Blackburn Rovers. Now, I am anticipating a bit of a drop from this club.
Oh dear, this predictions is going down the toilet. It's pants at the moment. Blackburn to finish 19th place, and honestly, that's 11 places wrong. They finished 8th place. Why did I think that they were going to drop down the table? I think the biggest factor was Adam Armstrong. But did I not see what heroics Ben Brereton Diaz did with Chile? And did I not think he'd carry that into Blackburn? Maybe that's what I thought. Maybe I thought he'd get an injury. But why did I not get any faith with Blackburn at all? They had an unbelievable start to the season, Blackburn Rovers. They were right up there in the midst of actually in the top 6. But Typical Blackburn, start the season well and then fall short in 2022, and that is what happened there. But it was actually a fall that still found them in 8th place, which just goes to show how good of a start they actually had in the season. I remember when Blackburn were 10 games unbeaten one stage, and it really looked like that they could get top 6 very, very soon. But it wasn't to be. Tony Mowbray's now left, and it'll make things very interesting for next year.
18th place, we're staying in northwest of England because we're predicting Blackpool to finish 18th. That is the highest ranked team I've got out of the 3 newly promoted sides.
This is not an awful prediction. Blackpool to finish in 18th place. They finished 16th place in the end. So if anything, I actually didn't give Blackpool enough credit actually when I originally predicted them. I did think that they were going to concede the less goals out of the 3 newly promoted teams going up, and I think that has turned out to be the case despite Blackpool conceding 5 goals very, very recently in their last game of the season. And their goal scoring has been the problem. It has been the problem, but I did not think Shane Lavery was going to have the season that he had. He actually really turned himself to the number 1 striker that people had to look for over Jerry Yates. Jerry Yates, I said, was going to be very important and will be the difference, but it turns out Jerry Yates had a very disappointing season, so Lavery was the striker that actually stole the headlights in the end. So a little bit wrong in terms of the preview there, but in the end, maybe I should have predicted Blackpool to finish just a tiny bit higher with the circumstances that some of the experienced Championship clubs were going through.
17th place, I've gone for Coventry City, which is a 1-place drop in what they finished last season. I think this year will be a little bit tough for this Coventry side. And their biggest blow, I think, for me was losing Leo Ostergaard. He, of course, has left Coventry to join Brighton once again. But even with that, they have kept some of their loans in. They got Victor Gallorquez back, which I think is brilliant. Ben Sheaf, I think even better that they got him back, because I think he was a very crucial part in that midfield role. They still got Gustavo Hamer, where he could have had a load of interest.
Why on earth did I not think Coventry would improve with the players they got in? They got Gallorquez back. They had Sheaf return. Waghorn, yes, he didn't score many goals, but was a crucial squad depth player. I know they lost Ostergaard, but he wasn't like the main reason why Coventry survived last year. It was their goals. Gallorquez, Gordon, and the fact that they got those players back, and Gordon did actually play a little bit more this season. Yes, he was injured for quite some time, but in that previous season, Gordon barely featured because he was injured so much. And the fact that Gordon consistently played a little bit more, he played a very important part too. Their attacking players were fantastic. I gotta say, Simon Moore in goal as well was a very good signing as well, where they had not made that signing by the time I made this predictions video. They ultimately just made the right transfers. The squad is fantastic right now, finishing 12th place, their best points return, and I would be very surprised if I don't predict Coventry to have another good season next year unless they lose some crucial players. But I've got to say, sorry to Coventry fans, sorry to Matt if you're watching this. I definitely did not have enough faith in your Coventry side at the start of the season.
16th place, I've gone for Bristol City, which is a slight improvement on their 20th place finish from last season. Now, there's a lot of question marks I find with this Bristol City side, whether Nigel Pearson is going to be the right manager for the job, but also with the squad.
Gosh dang it, so close with Bristol City. I was 1 place out with them. Only 1 correct prediction so far, which has been Peterborough. And I've got to say, I've never had more than 1 correct position in my 2 years in doing the championship. So I really hope I actually do better this year at the moment. I hope to not see too many -1s, because that was really happening a lot in last season's table predictions. Bristol City 16th, actually, I'm going to actually give myself a bit of credit there, because the thing is with them, I think I balanced it with the fact that the players were underperforming. I think this season the players available did perform better. I think last season the big issue with them was that Naki was their top goal scorer, and I think their best attacking player, Andre Weimann, was injured for pretty much the whole season. Weimann was available for most of the season, actually scored 20 plus goals this year. But even with that goals, to finish in 17th with that sort of player in your disposal, with Semenyo and Martin and other talented attackers, it's their defence that's ultimately let them down this year. And I think that is a really big factor to why Bristol City have not done well this season. I've got to say, they really got to start building their foundations and be a tough team to break down. They really got to try and work on those basics. Otherwise, Bristol City are just going to continuously be in the lower league mid-table position, and eventually one season will decimate them with their squad with injuries, and then they could fight relegation battles. So they've got to be very careful, Bristol City, come next year.
In 15th place, I've gone for Reading. Now, they are the final team out of all the teams that have been given a transfer embargo. Now, Reading have got theirs from profit and sustainability rules, alongside with Derby, a very, very weak squad in depth. Now, they only have, for what I know, 16 to 17 senior players. Their squad depth is what's really been the biggest factor of me that Reading are going to struggle this year. They've already lost some players that have been really important in their starting 11. Omar Richards they've lost. Michael Elise to Crystal Palace, of course. They could lose more. Yaku Mate is going to be injured at the start of the season.
Oh, dear me. I mean, we had a lot of teams I predicted way too low, but now I'm predicting a lot of teams way too high. It's clear to see where the main problem of the table was, which was right in the mid-table. So it was Reading that I predicted in 15th place. They finished in 21st. And by my description, it made me sound that Reading were going to have a really tough season. But I tell you this, I need to get rid of this mind thinking you shouldn't see a team drop down more than 15 places. You know, I think you're going to see it with Barnsley and Cardiff, because I already know I've not predicted those two teams yet. They're already going to be way too high. I need to be braver in terms of predicting teams to have a massive drop this season and not base their success so much on this last season. The Championship is so capable of having a team nearly getting promotion and then getting them relegated in the following season. I think Reading was one of those teams where obviously they just missed out on the playoffs last year and were nearly relegated this year, so literally opposite ends of the table. 6 places wrong I was, and to be fair, I think at the time I was a tiny bit brave predicting Reading to be in this position, but when I looked at it now, I think all of us underestimated the job that Panovic was going to have and how difficult they were going to find it. So I think that's down with all of us as well. I think, likewise with Huddersfield, I think this is a team that we've all got wrong as well.
Now, 14th place, I've gone for Birmingham. Now, have I predicted Birmingham a bit too high? I don't know. I might have predicted Birmingham to finish a little bit too high there.
God, I don't know how I feel about this Birmingham prediction. I even said I predicted Birmingham maybe a bit too high. The problem with Birmingham, really, as a simple fact, is the static business that they've had, the very little permanent players that they've got, the amount of loans they've got. It's all very short term, but there's no development there, and that is one thing I'm a bit concerned with Birmingham going into next year, especially if they cannot renew the contracts with those loan players as well. I talked about Sarkic being a good player, and I got to say Birmingham had their best period of the season when Sarkic was in goal, keeping so many clean sheets. It was actually rivaling at the time Sam Johnston for the most clean sheets in the Championship, but ultimately he did get that injury, didn't he, and he returned to Wolves. And then when Etheridge got back in goal, defence was a lot weaker and more vulnerable. Shots going in was a lot more for Birmingham as well, so that could have been a big factor to why Birmingham did have a pretty sharp drop near the end of the season, because they were not too far away from the top half in around December time. 2022 hit them like a truck and they went down to 20th, so I'm 6 places wrong with that. Had it not been a 2022 form, I think that prediction of 14th place actually wouldn't have been a terrible prediction by me.
Now in 13th place, with a big drop-off from last season, is the Championship playoff finalist Swansea City. Now the big reason why I've got Swansea to finish this low is a couple of things really. I mean, one, they've lost some really big characters in their squad from last season. They've lost Andre Ayew. They have made a couple of signings. Joel Pirro from PSV Eindhoven, I don't know, he's a bit unproven in English football for me. They have got a new manager as well, Russell Martin. Now, it's a very big contrast. I did allude to this when I talked about him in my transfer show. It's very different to what we were used to with Steve Cooper. It would take time, I think, for this squad to really adapt to this new style of football.
A very close prediction again. I predicted Swansea 13th, they finished 15th. So I was right to put Swansea in the lower half of the table. And I've got to say, I don't think many people did put Swansea in the bottom half of the table. So I was one for very few that did. Obviously, I should have pushed them down a little bit lower. Now, they definitely had a really tough start to the season. It really was definitely trying to get used to Russell Martin's new style of football that definitely delayed Swansea's success. Their form in 2022 was great. I think they actually are in the top 6 when it comes to form and points picked up in 2022. So Swansea next year, I'm excited to see how well they'll do for next year. But they've actually gone, Swansea, I think it's 9 games unbeaten at some stage, which actually has been their best form, and that did take place in 2022. So I expect Swansea to be a team that improved, but obviously a sharp change from going from a pragmatic manager like Cooper and losing a creative player like Ayew was always going to be very, very difficult for Swansea to adapt. But I've got to say, fair play to Joel Pirro. I wasn't too sure on him, and I said he was unproven in my video. But let's see, 22 goals, is that unproven for a Championship player? He's done very well this season, so I've got to say, well done to Joel Pirro. I think he was definitely one. Had he actually probably had scored a couple more goals, they probably could have been up there, because Swansea in the end were only 3 points behind 13th place, which is what I predicted. So very, very close, but no cigar for me. So that's the bottom half of the table completely done. A couple of really bad ones, but ultimately not too bad. I don't know how I feel about it, but let's hope that the top half of the table would be as good as the bottom part.
Now in 12th place, also a bit of a drop, is Barnsley. Now, I've seen a lot of people predict Barnsley in different places. Some have predicted them to finish top 6 again, some of them predicted to be mid-table like I'm doing, and some of them predicted to have a relegation battle. It really is really difficult to predict Barnsley this year. I think one of the most difficult sides to predict.
Oh, for goodness sake, man. Well, another team I was wrong. I did call that Barnsley was way too high because I noticed I'd not predicted them. I mean, it could have been worse. I could have predicted Barnsley to be close to the top 6. 12 places wrong I was, and in terms of prediction, they dropped 19 places. I don't think any team has had as bad of a season or as big as a drop as has Barnsley. Bottom of the league, 30 points. Shop ultimately just wasn't the man for the job, wasn't he? And I think when you lose the best source for goals and you lose your captain and your manager leading the line, those are 3 big parts of your team that you've lose. They relied on youth, I think a bit too much. I think a lot of those youth players were a bit unproven. Styles ultimately tried to help them alongside with Morris. You know, they didn't help. Woodrow didn't have a great goal scoring season compared to last year as well. Some of those players' performances this season have been absolutely disgraceful for Barnsley, considering how well they were last year. They're back down to League One after 3 seasons in the Championship, and I don't know how confident I'll feel of them going into League One next season.
Now, 11th place, I've gone for Nottingham Forest. Now, that alongside with Preston are probably one of my biggest calls for Nottingham Forest to improve quite a fair bit. I was even thinking of putting Forest a little bit further up. The biggest reason why they're up there is that for me, they've got a manager worthy of a top 6 Championship club in Chris Hughton. And I think him by himself, with a full season under Forest, I think will get Forest to improve.
Oh, in 11th place was Forest. I was hoping I put Forest a bit higher. I was just in the back of my mind thinking, come on, be brave, put Forest up there. But I think still a big part of me was still thinking that maybe that Forest has this playoff eluding curse that they just cannot get into the playoffs, or they're allergic to get into the playoffs. But that was changed this year. But I tell you this, little did we know that it wouldn't be Chris Hughton being the one that actually put the team up there. It was Steve Cooper. So I think everyone got this wrong theoretically of what their season was going to look like. But position-wise, if anyone predicted them in the top 6, they have been absolutely saved by the heroics of Steve Cooper and eventually the squad performing. And I've got to say, I was pretty critical of that squad, but the signings they got in, great players in the end. And I think Steve Cooper's definitely got the best out of them. And I definitely think that they will be a favourite going up from the top 6.
Now, with 10th place, I've gone with Stoke. And this is the only position that I'm matching for my last predictions table from last year. I also predicted Stoke to finish 10th last season as well, and I'm going to do the same here. Now, of course, they didn't quite finish 10th, they finished 14th last season. They had some promise at the start of the season, but then this long-term injury to Tyrese Campbell really affected them.
Well, deja vu with Stoke. I predicted them to finish 10th last year too, and where did they finish last year? 14th, and what did they do this year? They finished 14th. No change, no improvement. Complacency. Stoke City are a team, and I remember saying it in my video, that they need to have a really good season and challenge for top 6. And they go through great spells, especially at the start of the season, but they have injury problems that halt their progress. But we've seen plenty of teams with having plenty of injuries find a way around it. There seems to be no plan B when they have a lot of their key players injured. Obviously, it was Nick Power and Vrancic when they carried those injuries. It really affected the momentum of this team. And I got to say it, Jacob Brown's probably put himself in flying colours this season. Stoke, with the squad they've got, should do better there. Another disappointing season, in my opinion. And they really got to I think, got to be a bit cutthroat and be quite ruthless very, very soon. Otherwise, if they're going to have a lot of complacency, they're really going to lose out on any sort of momentum and potential that Stoke can get promoted out of the Championship.
Now, 9th place is my dark horse for this season, Luton Town. You can never rule out Luton Town. They had a terrific season last season, getting their highest points total ever in the Championship.
God, so I said they were my dark horse, but I did not predict them to finish in the top 6. That makes sense, doesn't it, Alex? Right, I'm a bit happy but upset at the same time, because I remember doing this for Luton, thinking they could definitely get top 6, but I just didn't back it. I tell you what I was thinking, and I think I got influenced by other content creators, thinking that Millwall were going to have a better season than Luton, and I think those were the two teams I was just swapping around over the table. So I think Luton finishing 9th, yes, it's pretty good. It is an improvement, a pretty good substantial improvement from their 12th place finish from last year, but I definitely should have backed Luton to improve by more. Nathan Jones and Luton Town are just a match made in heaven. That's all I can say. Adebayo had his best goal scoring season as well. They've got a top 6 campaign. Luton Town have got a top 6 campaign. Unbelievable. The Championship never ceases to amaze me.
8th place is Millwall. Now, I associate Millwall a little bit with Stoke. A side with great promise but can ultimately let a couple people down. It's going to be consistency that's going to be the biggest testing point for this Millwall side. I really like the signing of Bensound. I think he'll be a wild card. Mill really need goals. It's going to be their biggest asset to see if they can improve a couple of places from their finish last season.
So close again. It's another position and team I get wrong by -1. Are you serious? And they would have finished 8th had Blackburn not beaten Birmingham on the final day of the season. They lost to Bournemouth. Blackburn edged Millwall by 1 goal difference, and that was ultimately why Blackburn overtook Millwall from 8th place from the final day. Millwall were in 8th place for quite a fair bit of time. I nearly had that spot on as well. I'm so gutted on that, but I'll be proud that I actually got them to finish in around that position. There were some teams and content creators predicting Millwall in the top 6 even, but for me, I felt they were going to slightly fall short. Bensound actually had a pretty good season. I did say that I think he'll be a good signing. He did score 12 goals for Millwall, so he's had a pretty good season. But I did say the lack of goals was going to do it. They scored 53 goals, which doesn't sound too bad, but when you consider the teams around them, they've scored nearly over 15 or even 20 more goals than what Millwall did. So once again, their goal season hangs them dry a little bit. Their home form was terrific, Millwall, 2nd place in the league, but their away form was atrocious, and that has been why Mill have not been able to get into the top 6. Had they improved their away form, then Mill would have easily got top 6.
7th place for me is Middlesbrough.
Get in! I got Middlesbrough right. Oh my gosh, okay. I think a lot of the time with everyone else, I don't think many of us predicted Neil Warnock to get sacked for Middlesbrough, unless Middlesbrough, we predicted him to finish in a pretty low place in the table. But I think that, sometimes when you predict teams, you either finish pretty high or, pretty low, you've got to think, is it going to be the manager? And I clearly thought Neil Warnock was going to stay to the season. That was a bit of a mistake. He leaves around, well, not even the halfway stage, and Chris Wilder comes in, gets a good run of form going, but ultimately it still wasn't quite enough. There was a lot of money spent in January getting Florian Balogun in, and ultimately he really flopped, I've got to say. I really expected big things from Balogun, but he really didn't deliver. Middlesbrough missed out on 5 points in the end, which does seem a bit excessive, but they were taking the battle to the final day of the season. They had a lot of games in hand, and they really had it in their hands, but unfortunately for them, they bottled it. And 7th place was actually the correct prediction in the end, and I'm a little bit surprised I actually got that right. So I'll give myself a small pat on the back. I got more than one correct position, so in terms of getting teams correctly in the correct position, I've already done better than my last 2 years combined, so I'm happy with myself with that.
Now, 6th place for me, really by the narrowest of margins, is Cardiff. I think Cardiff overall just have the more stronger squad from transitioning from defence to attack.
Oh no, why do I say when I have such a really good prediction, I then do this? Are you kidding me right now? So, Cardiff 6th place, 12th place is wrong, 18th place. Mick McCarthy has been the biggest factor for Cardiff not to be up there. James Collins I backed Why did I even think he would even score the amount of goals that he did for Luton Town? He's been an absolute flop at this Cardiff team. There's been no player for me that could really cover themselves with much glory in that Cardiff squad. One of the most underperforming teams, and just like with Barnsley, one of the biggest falls from grace from last season as well, considering that they were a team with their momentum at the end of the season looking fantastic. At the start of this season, absolutely night and day compared to the end of the last season and the start of this season. So disappointing, and I don't even know how their future is going to look with Steve Morrison still in charge. I could fear for Cardiff next year.
5th place for me is Queen's Park Rangers. Queen's Park Rangers definitely with the most positive momentum from in the end of last season. 15 wins in their last 24. Pre-season has been incredible to say the least, beating Manchester United by 4-2 and holding Leicester to a 3-3 draw as well. Let's just watch them be the one side that's going to let everyone down, because I think everyone and their dog are predicting Queen's Park Rangers to finish in the top 6. So I'm almost going to be eagerly anticipating Queen's Park Rangers maybe being the team that everyone gets wrong, but this is what the championship is all about. You've got to predict the unpredictable. You've got to expect the unexpected.
Why am I such a jinx? I actually called this as well, that QPR would ruin many people's predictions. And what do they go and do? At the start of 2022, they just forget to win their games. I think a big factor was injuries. AFCON played a big part of it when getting rid of Chair and Dieng and quite a fair few of their players. But they still had a good enough squad within them, but they really couldn't cope with the injuries there, and Warburton has now left QPR. A real change in the tables in terms of QPR, because they were one of the favourites to be in the top 6, and they were right up there with Blackburn pushing for those top 2 positions. But both forms in 2022 have fallen down a cliff, and it's actually made QPR fall lower down than Blackburn, which even surprised me, because Blackburn at a stage went through 1 win in 13, but guess what? QPR also went through 1 win in 13 as well. So ultimately, it's those forms that really killed both of these clubs' seasons, and QPR next year, they've got a great squad within them, but they really got to get this next manager right.
4th place, I've gone for Bournemouth. If Danjuma stays, I could potentially even see Bournemouth finishing a bit higher than 4th.
Okay, so Bournemouth 4th. How do I feel about that? Not too bad, considering that they actually could have finished in 4th had they been in the wrong end of their last 2 games of the season. The loss to Forest would have pushed them in 3rd, and then Huddersfield winning in the final day would have overtaken them, and then Bournemouth not beaten Millwall, they would have been down to 4th. But that would have been too many scenarios going against Bournemouth, and I think one thing I did not expect Bournemouth to do was to splash the amount of cash they did in the January transfer window, and ultimately their 15-game unbeaten run at the start of the season was really what set the tone that Bournemouth were going to finish 2nd in the end, and ultimately it was any other teams to try and catch them when they eventually lost their first game of the season, which was against Preston. So I think overall, I'm not too disappointed, but I think they should have put them at least in 3rd place, considering they are a team that, after, playoff heartbreak, they definitely would have been really gunning for this season.
3rd place for me, maybe a bit of a shock. West Brom. The biggest reason why I think they will be in 3rd, I think out of the newly relegated teams from the Premier League, I think based on what I see, they're probably going to score the least amount of goals. Now, that will be especially if Mateus Pereira leaves.
Oh, dear me. Okay, well, it's not as bad as I thought. I actually thought I'd put West Brom in the top 2. But it's still not great. 3rd place, West Brom. Oh, dear me. I mean, the start of the season, 10 games unbeaten. They lose to Stoke, and then all of a sudden, the wheels fall off. So, mentality-wise, that squad has been a disgrace, really. To go through 10 games unbeaten, it shows that they got the momentum and the quality. They had such a deep squad with a really capable manager, but when the expectations and the pressure got to them, they really buckled, and then it's almost like the players stopped playing for Ishmael. Steve Bruce went in. He took a lot of time to get things going as well. Eventually, near the end of the season, started getting some consistent results. But ultimately, by that time, it was too little too late. And that has been so disappointing from West Brom with the amount of inconsistency about them. Carl Grant, I said, was going to struggle. To be fair, he has scored 18 goals, which is quite good. But for a team like West Brom, when you think about 2nd place, Bournemouth having Solanke with 29, he needed to go up to 25 goals, Carl Grant, if he had to really put West Brom in that conversation, you know, to be in the top teams there. And I got to say, Robinson has been disappointing too. At the start of the season, he was brilliant, but then it's almost like he was a ghost in the final 25 games of the season. So a lot of good players in, underperforming. I think Moet getting injured wasn't great, but ultimately they should have had all the resources to cover all of that, and they didn't, and that's disappointing. And I don't know how I'm going to feel about West Brom next year with Steve Bruce still in charge. First year parachute payments to even get 10th place is embarrassing.
We made it to the top 2. Second place for me is Sheffield United.
Oh, thank you, Paul Heckingbottom. That's all I can say. When Jokanovic was in and Sheffield United were in the bottom 3, this would have been another Huddersfield Town that I would have got wrong. It would have been a good 18 places wrong. But Heckingbottom goes in and he saves Sheffield United's season. Yes, they were never going to get second place in the end for the fact that, you know, at the start of the season, you know, they had an absolutely horrendous run of form. But they did salvage it, and I'm only 3 places wrong. It really could have been worse.
First place is Fulham.
Right, 3 correct predictions. Right, a bit pleased about that, but yeah, I think everyone predicted Fulham to win. I mean, some people didn't, but most people predicted Fulham to win. I'm not going to take too much pride in that. Well, this is my final table. 3 correct positions, but so many awful ones as well. I mean, Huddersfield wrong by 18 places, I think sums it up. That this season, whilst it's been good at times for my predictions, it's been also unpredictable and embarrassing as well. So 18 places wrong with Huddersfield. Blackburn wrong by 11 places. Barnsley and Cardiff wrong by 12 places. So double figures of getting teams wrong is not great, isn't it? And I actually think I've actually got more positions wrong this year than I have done in my other 2 years. So theoretically, overall as an average, I've actually done the worst this year. But I think that's happened to everyone. I think the same teams that we've got wrong, I think everyone else has gone wrong as well, to be fair. But now in this end of the video, let's now look at some comments and see what you guys have predicted. Johnny Burrows says, agreed with Luton being dark horses this season. Honestly, yeah, I mean, I was right. I probably should have backed them to even do a little bit better than what they did in the end, actually. This predictions is from Roberto the Hornet. So he got Fulham right. Swansea and Cardiff 6 and 7 is not that great, isn't it? To be fair, he got Derby right, but Coventry last. Oh, not great. Top goal scorer, Mitrovic, 24 goals. Okay, only the 19 goals short, but he did pretty well predicting that. Jebison, young player of the season. No. And surprise package QPR. Yeah, surprised for how bad they've been in 2022. Just predicted Fulham to win. Okay, that's a correct prediction there. Any other teams he's got correctly predicting? 9th place, Millwall's right. Fair play, he's done well with that. That's 2 so far. 14th place, Stoke, he got correct as well. Bristol City, Blackburn, Luton, Preston. Hull 19th, he got right. That's 4 so far. Peterborough, Blackpool, Derby, Coventry, Huddersfield. Oh, Huddersfield last. Oh dear. This is going to be horribly wrong. To be fair, 4 correct predictions is pretty good. But Huddersfield last, yeah, let's not talk about that. Always floating, thank you so much. I've not noticed this comment clearly for quite some time. Thank you so much. Charlie has now said, Fulham to win, yes. 3rd place Cardiff. That emoji, no, I'm questioning now. Why have you put Cardiff in 3rd? West Brom 4th, no. Bournemouth 5th, no. Swansea 7th, no. I'm still looking at all of the rest of the table. Barnsley 12th, okay, so we both got Barnsley wrong quite a fair bit there. Blackburn 13th. I'm not seeing any more correct predictions at this moment of time. In fact, Bristol City 17th. Now, it's difficult to predict. It's really difficult to predict the table, isn't it? Barlio's predicted West Brom and Fulham to be top 2. Well, we found someone to not predict Fulham to be top. In terms of the rest of the table, Reading 9th. Oh, dear. Hey, Matt. It's nice to see you. Nah, thank you so much for the support there. Here's Luke in terms of his predictions. West Brom to win, not quite. Fulham 2nd again. Yeah, West Brom and Fulham, you know, were the very common top 2 for what I can see over there. 5th, Sheffield United. Well done, you got that spot on, actually. 7th, Middlesbrough, he got spot on as well. Well done on that part there. Barnsley 10th, though, is quite wrong, though. I'll give him that. Any other teams he got right? 14th place, Stoke, he also got right. That's 3 correct predictions so far. I'm not seeing any other correct positions though, and yeah, that's it. 22nd place Huddersfield. A lot of us got Huddersfield wrong, it's fair to say. Just one final thing I'm also going to do for luck as well. There was 2 other videos where I predicted the championship table. There was 2 updated videos. This table was about 2 months into the season where we had about 10 games being played. If you notice, there are a couple of good predictions within that position there. One of them being that Fulham and Bournemouth are correct at being the top. And also, I predicted Birmingham to finish 20th. Those were the 2 correct positions there. But still, Forest 11th, Huddersfield 13th. Really disappointing once again. I was close with Swansea, a bit closer with Preston, a bit closer, quite a fair bit closer with Reading there. Blackpool, not quite right. Bristol City, too high. Blackburn 10th was very, very close, actually. Cardiff 9th still. What am I doing there? And Luton, Coventry, a little bit more improvement there as well. But Stoke 5th. What on earth was I smoking there? And then the final updated table, which I made in roughly, I think, only 2 months left within the season. I think we had about 12 games left. I did much better. 5 correct positions this time. Fulham and Bournemouth still top 2. Forest 4th, I got spot on. And some people said that Forest won't finish 4th, but I called it. Unfortunately, I put the wrong team to finish 3rd. I put Middlesbrough, which was way too high in the end of it. Blackburn and QPR, ultimately, their 2022 form ultimately continued to be as poor as it was, so they didn't finish in the top 6 in the end of it. Sheffield United just missed out. Huddersfield still not in the top 6. I still did not back them. I've got to say, I think the best and biggest surprise package this season has been Huddersfield Town. They've really proven me wrong the whole way round, and it wouldn't even surprise me if they complete the fairy tale by getting promoted by the playoffs as well. I also got West Brom to finish 10th, which actually I think was actually quite a brave prediction by me, but I actually got that spot on. And Swansea to finish in 15th, I also got correct as well, but I got the bottom 3 completely wrong. By that time, that was when Derby looked like that they could survive, and I did predict Derby to survive, but ultimately, of course, that did not happen in the end. But let me know, guys, how did you feel about your predictions in the comments down below? I would love to hear your thoughts on what you thought this season, what you thought of my predictions and performances, and how do you compare it to anyone else's performances as well. I think that's enough of us laughing and feeling embarrassed about all of these table predictions. It has been a fun season for 21-22 season. I'm hopefully going to do more of these seasons next year. If you do want to see more of these seasons on this channel next year, please like the video. It really helps. Let's go for, I don't know, 30 likes. That'd be a great target if we can get it. Please hit the subscribe button as well. Every time we subscribe, it's most likely that this channel will be going ahead. So thank you guys already for the support. But if you do subscribe to the channel, it does really help as well. You can share the channel. That really helps as well. You can even send a super thanks as well, which is a new feature that I put onto this channel as well. That will be amazing if you can do that as well. But guys, that wraps it up. Oh my days. I'm not looking forward to editing this, but I'm going to have to put this on the internet. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you saw the end of this video. And as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.